All right, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live after a great, well-needed, I think, holiday weekend for all. Calen, welcome to the show. Good to have Calen Shultz on the show today. Calen is the Chief Operating Officer at Emerios. They help companies rapidly modernize sales processes and equip teams with the tools they need to drive performance during COVID and beyond. Calen, I'm looking forward to chatting with you today about this because I think this is so critical in today's world. So let's dive into when we talk about sales processes, because I think that's something that a lot of people they just don't have. I mean, it seems like they would have it, but a lot of companies don't. And I think one of the things I found, and I think companies found, is during post-COVID, they realized all the processes that were broken or they didn't have that were now causing a lot of trouble. So let's kind of start there as far as, what you and your company do to modernize the sales process and equip the teams. Let's start there.
Yeah, thanks, John, and glad to be on the show with you today. I think it was really interesting with COVID and the impact that it had on organizations' process. Is it really magnified deficiencies that were there, where in pre-COVID you were able to have people manually or being in person with customers navigate through parts of the process that were that would fail if they weren't able to be there hands-on in person working with them. So as companies were forced to move people remotely, it really magnified the fact that there were parts in the process that weren't streamlined. They didn't create the right type of experience for the customers that were being sold to. So one of the things that we always do is we start by looking at an organization's process from end to end, whether it's their employee or agent onboarding, the customer journey across all the different channels, whether they're being sold on the website, in a retail store, over the phone, and looking at where are there opportunities to gain efficiencies, improve experience to further equip the salespeople with the scripting and tools they need to be more effective, and to ensure compliance, especially in this remote world that we're living in today. Providing sensitive information to people without the right type of technology in place, it exposes everyone to risk.
Yeah. So how do we do that? How do you marry, you're talking about, less salespeople are going and in front of clients today and creating that experience. I'm a big believer that everything needs to be, not only systems oriented and process oriented, but there also needs to be an experiential element to things. And so can you kind of marry the two and how important they work in tandem?
Yeah, it's the interesting dichotomy that we live in with sell more and stress less, right? That we want to make sure that the sales representative has a guided process that gives them the confidence that they need to present the offering to the customer in a manner that is transparent, it's engaging, it's authentic. So really removing all ambiguity and creating a guided experience where it's literally step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's easy for them to see. And it's especially in this remote world we're living in, it's no longer the seller and the customer. They're in this journey together. So creating a user interface where the seller can share their screen, they can collaboratively walk through the sales process together. It needs to be fully transparent. So whatever methodology you're using or sales channel, the customer, especially now with using Zoom for sales or Teams or other web-based mediums, giving the customer the impression and the feeling that people are literally selling in each other's living rooms these days. Yeah. So giving them the ability to share screen and see and go through that process together, it's really important.
Yeah, let's talk about I want to go back to the step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, because I think that's so important. And I just want to continually younger down that process, right? Everything to me is in many ways an assembly. And people learn well in steps, and it seems very fundamental, but that's how people learn, right? I mean, today people's attention spans are less than a goldfish, about 6 and some odd seconds. Getting people to do what needs to be done in a way where we can take the thinking out of it. Let's look at McDonald's as an example, right? You take all the thinking and decision making out of what it is like to work that assembly line at a McDonald's, because everything has a system and a process down to the pickle, the amount of ketchup and the amount of mustard, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So just I want to kind of, for those listening now and in the future, I want to really drive home the importance of, step-by-step processes, which I think is the only way, not the only way, but a significant and critical thing that needs to be done in order to scale a company.
Oh, that's so true. And coming from Michigan, home of Ford Motor Company, yeah. Thinking about, factory production lines and how do you create, safety, precision, high quality, predictability. It's everything that you want in your sales process as well. So there are, deconstructing a sales process. The first thing you want to look at is I need to make sure that in my sales process, I'm asking and presenting the right information at the right time. And so starting off with step 1, step 2, you want to provide engaging content to the person that you're presenting to. And in step 2, you may present specific products or offers tailored for that person, depending on their customer profile. So one of the benefits of having your sales process structured with these stages and steps is it allows you to see conversion rates at a more granular basis. In most organizations, especially those that are using manual process, you really have one KPI. It's did the sale close? Yeah. And in today's world, to really scale a process, you need the granular visibility and the capability to measure the conversion between critical steps in your sales process so you can better coach and train your salespeople. And you can also identify issues in your process or in your sales process where customers are losing some trust because they stop in the process. They fall off in the process midway. Yeah. So I think that does that help with some of the steps?
100%. And I love what you're talking about, Calen, because you got to measure everything in business, or a significant amount of most everything. Mm-hmm. And when you're looking at conversions, I think one of the things, and I see this in companies all over the country that I coach, they're not using those numbers to forecast like you're talking about. And then when it comes to reverse engineering, where their people need training, they're not training their people effectively or even at all to grow their sales, to grow their skill set. And so kind of take a magnifying glass to that as far as how what you do shines a light on what actually, in addition, needs to be done.
Yeah, it's really interesting that your sales process should magnify insights to sales leadership into specifically what they should be coaching their salespeople on. And Correct. There's always two things. And I think we both come from the background with training from people like Brian Tracy. Is there are challenges typically with people, whether it's their will or their skill. When it's a will issue, it's they didn't start early enough, they didn't make enough calls, they didn't give enough presentations. There's something there that's impacting either their desire or their level of effort. The other side is skill. How effective and how well trained, how much product knowledge do they have? How well can they handle a negotiation with a customer? So if in my sales process, I have the ability to visualize the life cycle of a particular seller's data, the data that's coming off of that journey, whether it's the steps or the quantity of times they took somebody through the journey, I can more specifically train instances where I need to improve their skill, or maybe it's their will. They didn't start soon enough. How many calculated hours did they work during the day? So the more insights I can gain from my sales process, the more prescriptive I can be in my coaching, the more I can drive sales, the more investors or stakeholders in my organizations I have happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that is so well said. When it comes to will and skill, I think that's I love the way you articulate that, because to me, to grow, what I see goes back to Jim Collins, right? If you want to grow an organization, you need people, and you have salespeople that have the skill but not the will, then you got a problem, right? Yeah. And so when you're working with companies and you're saying, hey, here's how we look at the sales process, here's what we can do for you to equip your teams, what insight do you give them actually about making sure that they actually have the right team?
Yeah, it's really really interesting. Well, organizations, especially the Fortune 100 types of companies that we're working with, they don't run and manage 100% of their sales organizations internally. They use vendor partners. They'll leverage companies that specialize in recruiting, training, and motivating salespeople to sell in major retail stores, on the phone, B2B, out in the market. So in that process, to not have I think ultimately you have to take the same prescriptive methodology for your agent or employee onboarding process as you do for your customer journey. It's the same thing. When I look at bringing on new talent, I need to deconstruct their journey. What am I showing them? How am I vetting them? How am I validating that they know the right things to say to my customers? And how do I ensure that this organization that's out there representing me meets my organization's standards? So everything from your background checks, using an LMS to check their knowledge of your product offering. You have to construct a agent or employee onboarding journey that gives you the insights into the people that are representing you. So I would say crafting an intelligent and engaging onboarding experience for the people that you have out there. That is one really effective way to make sure that you've got the right people representing you, is by designing and architecting a agent or employee onboarding journey that makes sure that you've got the right outputs coming out of that process. Yeah,
I love what you're talking about. All right, good. So let me ask you, I want to back up to the people who need your services, but don't necessarily know they need your services. So how does a company know when they need your type of work, right? Because I think right now, I think always, but I always see, people struggle with, something in investment or something in expense, and then how they, calculate that as far as the growth and scalability of, where they can quantifiably see anything, regardless of what they're buying. But when does a company realize that they need you and they need to invest? And is this a short-term thing, a long-term thing? Like, what's the commitment? I would think those are all the things that people grapple with.
Oh, that's a great question, John. Yeah, I think the need is out there. I think it's prevalent in all organizations. When I take a step back as a stakeholder in a company and I look at the processes that I have in place for onboarding my employees or onboarding my customers, there are often manual processes that create inefficiencies and create risk. So if I take a step back and I look at the process that I'm using for both of those, are there opportunities to gain efficiencies, to have better outcomes? If I have a better onboarding experience, can I attract and retain the better candidates rather than losing them to competitors? If I can move my onboarding process from 10 days to 3 days, how many more high quality candidates can I get? in my customer journey. If I can reduce the amount of time it takes, create a better experience, or improve conversion rates from 75% to 85%, if I'm signing up either 1,000 or 10,000 customers a day, each percentage point that I can improve my conversion rate adds material value to the business in their incremental sales. So for companies, I think all companies have an opportunity to look at the experiences that they're providing to their employees and their customers. The type of companies that we work with large, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies that are generally regulated, that are dealing with controls put in place by the public utility commissions, by the federal government. They work in multiple states. When you are growing and scaling your business, like you mentioned earlier, every state has dependencies on the rules for what disclaimers have to be presented, what types of signatures are accepted, how do you verify the customer's consent and capture information, like in California with the CCPA, the California Privacy Act, which is mirroring some of the GDPR in Europe. The rules that have to be in place and how you manage sensitive data, it's more prevalent now, and it's just getting harder to operate in multiple states. So if you're looking to scale your business and you're dealing with regulatory controls and you're managing requirements for multiple states and markets, that's what a solution like the Emerios platform solves for. Makes it easier to operate at scale in the face of complex requirements.
Yeah. And so when a company comes on board with you, regardless of, where they're at, kind of walk me through, or walk the listener through kind of the first couple steps, right? Like what is that onboarding process like? I would imagine it's pretty intense and pretty eye-opening to the companies, because it sounds like you're streamlining and saving a lot of time and creating a lot of efficiencies where they didn't have them.
Yeah, we see. First, I'll go through like what that process looks like, and I think the first thing is we review and look at all of the existing processes. We want to be able to inherit and take the best parts of existing processes into our standard best practice processes to keep the uniqueness or the fingerprint or the culture of our clients in that journey. Everyone has their own tailored way to present their products and offerings to their customers or to their salespeople. So we want to look at those and quickly identify what are the core things that must happen in this process for this client. And we also want to expose where are there potential deficiencies in the current process or risk with how they're managing. Still to this day, John, I see companies that have new candidates or employees or customers emailing or loosely text messaging social security cards, driver's licenses, all of this very sensitive information. And for me, because I've been in this space for the last 5 years, those are the real immediate quick wins are, how do we take their best practices for their culture and their content and their positioning, move it into our proven best practice journeys, and give them a rapid visualization of what this journey could look like. And we see companies that quickly identify, hey, these 3 people that I had manually supporting these processes, I can reallocate them to higher value, higher purpose things rather than looking at Excel spreadsheets or manually reviewing things. If we can automate those, I can give more purpose to my people, I can create more efficiencies in the business, and it's a net win-win. So.
And isn't that what it's all about? Especially, I think people are getting, more and more aware of the idea that, giving purpose to my people, like you're talking about. I mean, to me, the more measurables, the more structure you can give people. I hear this all the time from clients. The more you give them, the more they appreciate it. So they know kind of what they're doing, what to do next. I think people struggle. I see that all the time in my coaching. People struggle because a lot of times they don't have, whether it's the leadership or the manager, to share with them what to do next, right? What that next question is, what to do next. And so if you have systems and processes in place, a lot of times those tell you what to do next. And we're also busy, and we're also busy right now, especially with kids at home and everything with going on with COVID. We need that blueprint of what to do next. And
yeah, it's tough. I mean, we're in the digital transformation business, and there are opportunities even in our own organization to look at how are we, and it's interesting because people often look at clear KPIs and expectations for the process that they're managing, whether they're a sales manager, a representative, an onboarding, someone that has a particular role in the business. It's often viewed as, if I'm giving them clear KPIs of what they're going to be measured on, it sounds like it is Big Brother or it's a managerial task. But when you think about, people fundamentally need to know when they are achieving well, when they're doing their job well. And the only way to do that is with clarity on what they should be delivering and to what quality. So I think you're really hitting on, there is no, it's hard to give somebody purpose in their work when they're not explicitly being told what they should be doing.
Yeah. And so how does a company recognize that? How does the company begin to really recognize that, like, they need to do that for their people? I just want to dive into this a little bit, because to me, you have to today, with people working remotely, with flex time. This isn't changing, even post-vaccine. From what I'm hearing on the street, I don't think the idea of working remotely and certain people having more balance in their lives and being able to, dial into their family life a little bit more and do that, this has changed the landscape in a lot of ways. And so how is that? How are you seeing that?
I think the telltale signs that you have employees working within a system where the process doesn't help give clarity to what they should be doing and how they're measured. Right. You've got fraud and churn. I mean, you've got people that are quitting on you. They're leaving for other opportunities. They don't feel like they've got clarity or clear expectations of what they should be doing. From a salesperson perspective, when you have a loose process, when they know there are not controls in place, that it is a pre-built, guided, it's like the lanes in a bowling alley. If there is room for that ball to go off into the gutter, in a salesperson's perspective, when they get tired, when sales are down, when they're facing challenges, you will end up seeing people that are finding ways to cut corners. So I think that's two painful yet clear indicators that you have a process problem, and how you're measuring and managing your process is fraud and churn.
Yeah, great. Tell everybody who your ideal client is, Calen, again.
Our Emerios' ideal client would be an organization that is working through a digital transformation at scale. They operate in multiple states, selling products or services that are generally regulated. So the expectation for how the process is managed and the risk of not effectively vetting your employees or sales representatives, those are the types of companies that are generating tens of thousands of sales on a monthly basis, where high volume creates lots of opportunity for Emerios and for our clients, but also it creates an inordinate amount of risk to be operating at that scale.
All right, good. All right, couple speed round questions. You ready?
Let's go for it.
All right. Favorite book and why?
Favorite book and why? I would have to say Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I think over the course of the last 18 years, when I first read it, I've reread the book 4 or 5 times, and it always speaks to me, to where I'm at in my life and the insights there. It's one of the ultimate books for reprogramming your mindset and setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, it's such a good book. I mean, I've read it a couple of times, and I actually just interviewed somebody the other day that said they read it once a year or once every other year. I can't remember, but it is such a great book. You know, a big influence for me has been Brian Tracy. As you know, we've talked about this, and you know, he was the reason I got into doing what I'm doing now, which is business coaching. My dad gave me a set of tape sets by Brian Tracy when I was 18, and I put it on my ears, and I thought, this is exactly what I want to do. I've heard him speak many times, many years ago, and I know you know him. And so what would be one piece of advice that Brian Tracy taught you that you take into your daily world?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, Brian Tracy, his son Michael, everything that he's done. I think if it wasn't either a close second to that would have been Psychology of Selling. I think I've listened to that hundreds of times. But the one piece of advice or the coaching from Brian Tracy has to do with really thinking on paper and being really diligent for how you plan and spend your time. Like right now, it's like, because we are working from home, you may perceive that you have more time because you're not commuting. And I think you said it the other day when we were talking that it's no longer working from home. I forgot what you said. It's not working from home. It's I'm home from work. But anyways, we're spending so much time at home. Having a clear plan with what you want to accomplish on a daily basis and prioritize it. Otherwise, you're going to end up spending 12, 14 hours every day at your home office. So having a really clear plan, I think is one of the biggest things I got from him.
Yeah, I think that is huge. I got a lot of that from him as well. I've listened to and read everything. I mean, everything Brian Tracy, I love him. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received, non-Brian Tracy.
Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that every day we have a choice to make, that no matter what's going on, to set your mindset and your intention for the day and be the shining light on every call and every meeting you're in and every conversation. Have people leaving feeling a little bit better because your presence was there.
That's great. I love that. And finish this sentence. Last question, Calen. The one thing people need to do in 2020 to finish the year strong is?
The one thing people need to do in 2020 to finish the year strong is it's just kind of self-serving, but it's take a second to look at all of the processes in your business and look to see how have you transformed them to deal with COVID, and how can you, through small tweaks and changes, elevate and improve the outcomes for your team members and your customers by making small incremental changes that can dramatically impact your business.
Yeah, I think that is so important. I mean, any company that doesn't have a system, a process for sales in every division is making a huge mistake and is going to have a very, very difficult time, in my opinion. And I see this in companies all over the country, scaling their business over the next decade. You know, if you look at studies pre-COVID, studies were showing that 85% of the jobs that exist in the year 2030 do not exist today. Also, 75% of the global workforce by 2025 will be millennials, and that doesn't even include Gen Zs. And by 2027, 50% of the workforce will be freelancers. Those were pre-COVID numbers, and COVID accelerated all of that, in my opinion, and in many of the people that I talk to their opinion. And so the best way to be innovative, or one of the best ways to be innovative, is to have the systems and the processes and making everything so you take the thinking out of it and everybody's talking the same language and knows what the stream and the flow of everything is within a company. And then you hire people, right? I'm sure you see this too. I see this with companies that have that. When a company has that, then they can hire the right people that they know can fit and follow the system.
Yeah.
And still put their own personality into it, which is really key, versus having everybody kind of marching at their own beat.
Yeah, I think it's critical when you're looking at your organization. If you've hit a ceiling, if you've ran into where I've got this number of employees or this amount of sales or revenue, but I can't break through that barrier, it may not be an external problem. It's not the reception of the market. It is generally looking internally at, do I have people using heroics to get deals across the finish line or to make things happen when I need structured process in place? And process never sounds like a fun thing. So a small play on it is a system. And people like to work highly effective systems where they know that the outcomes are going to generate success for all the stakeholders. And I think COVID has just magnified the need for companies to get smarter about the processes that they're using to sell their product and to make sure that they're managing customer and employee data securely. So
yeah, well said. Well said. Calen, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I appreciate your insights and everything that you shared today about systems, processes, attitude, books, Brian Tracy, etc. So thank you so much for all of that. To everybody who's listening, thank you very much. Calen, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can reach out go to our website, Emerios.com. You can email me directly at Calen.Shultz, SCHULTZ @Emerios.com. And looking forward to hearing more about the strategic initiatives that you have going on in your organization to scale and grow and to manage the required transformation that COVID has put upon all of us. So looking forward to speaking with you. Thanks, John, again.
Calen, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks. This was great. And I always love talking about systems and processes. And I hope that a lot of people reach out to you so they can connect and learn more and sell more and stress less. Great. The greatest tagline ever.
Thank you, John. Have a good one. Talk soon. Yeah, bye.